In this video, we are looking at 3 different ways that Shakespeare talks about Easter. Let's go. G'day, Paul from Small Crown Productions here. Welcome back to the channel. Today is day 62 of the 100 Days of Shakespeare event, and it's Easter Sunday. So we are taking a look today at 3 different ways that Shakespeare talks about Easter. Now, I am not talking about straight mentions. For instance, in Henry IV Part 1, where Poins says, "Jack, how agrees the devil and thee about thy soul, that thou soldst him on Good Friday for a cup of Madeira and a cold capon's leg?" I'm not counting that as one of the 3. I should also mention that most of this information comes from the shakespearestandard.com. The link for that is in the description below. I have not gone through and checked all of the plays for all of the references, but I have done some reference checking and some cross-referencing of the information to make sure it seems accurate, and for the most part it does, but I will talk about one difference a little bit later on. So with that, let's jump into these 3 ways that Shakespeare talks about Easter. Now, our first way is through comparison, not so much of comparing Easter to something, but actually comparing the life of Christ to the divine right of kings. And we see an example of this in Richard II, where Richard says, "The favours of these men, were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry, 'All hail to me,' as Judas did to Christ? But he in 12 found truth in all but one. I in 12,000, none." And later directly compares himself to Christ on Good Friday. "Nay, all of you that stand and look upon, whilst that my wretchedness doth bate myself. Though some of you with Pilate wash your hands, showing an outward pity, yet you Pilates have here delivered me to my sour cross, and water cannot wash away your sin." The second way that we see Shakespeare mention Easter is through talking about traditions that were happening at the time. So one of the things that he mentions is this concept of clacking, which was actually the beggars would clack the lid to the base of a container that people could put alms in as they were begging for money. And he actually mentions this in Measure for Measure, where Lucio says, "His use was to put a ducat in her clack dish." Another tradition that he mentions is the idea of wearing new clothes at Easter time, that you should be wearing new clothes on Good Friday. This is a tradition I'd never actually heard of, and I'll touch on that a little bit in just a minute. But we see a reference to this with Mercutio talking to Benvolio in Romeo and Juliet. "Didst thou not fall out with a tailor for wearing his new doublet before Easter?" Now, I did a little bit of digging to try and work out where this custom started, because it's actually not one that I'd ever heard of before. And growing up in a Christian family, I would have thought that I would, given that it is supposed to be connected to baptism and the wearing of new white robes when you get baptized. But I found a couple of references to it. So the first was in an eZine article online, and there's a link to it in the description below. And the author of that article, Lily McAllister, says that Constantine, the first Roman emperor to become a Christian, actually decreed that his court should wear new clothes at Easter time. There are a couple of issues with this reference, and the first is that Constantine did not actually come to power until 306, where he was actually in dual power with another Augustus at the time, and didn't become the sole ruler of Rome till 324. So the fact that he would decree his court to do this would potentially imply that he had done it before he became an Augustus in 306, in which case it was just his household, perhaps. It is possible. And given that he actually did convert to Christianity and actually put a decree in place that allowed Christians to worship God instead of the polytheistic gods of that time, does kind of pay a little bit into that possibility. The issue I have with this is that I could not find a reference to that decree anywhere. Now, albeit I didn't dig extensively through the internet or archives or anything, but I did find plenty of references to the rough time that Constantine became a Christian and the decree that he made about freeing up Christians to be able to worship God rather than the polytheistic gods. So I would have expected to find something like that connected to some of those, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So not taking this one as 100% gospel. She also does not reference it in her article, so I have no idea where she's pulling that information from. And this is always the issue of just researching stuff online, is that you never really know where someone's grabbed that information from unless they have it referenced. The third way that we see Shakespeare talk about Easter is through superstition. And this was, again, something new to me. I'd not heard about this at all, but apparently Black Monday, which is the Easter Monday after Easter Sunday, is considered bad luck. It's supposed to be a day of bad luck. And there's a number of references to this, and one of the references suggests that it actually started eeping into the mindset from a 1360 battle where Edward III was set up outside of Paris, and he lost a whole heap of men and horses due to the extreme cold weather, and that happened on Black Monday. So this idea that Easter Monday is a bad luck day has potentially started from there. Again, no guarantees, just some references that I found in the articles below. So there you go, 3 different ways that Shakespeare talks about Easter in his work. 4 if you include just talking straight up about it. If you know a different way that he talks about Easter, pop it in the comments below and let me know. I'd be interested to hear what that is. If you learned anything new in this video, it'd be great if you gave it a like, consider subscribing, and of course, check out some of the other videos on the channel, and I'll see you there.